Before we talk about this situation, I want to go ahead and kind of preview this video with this right here. We are going to be speaking a little bit about the lawsuit and why it is that I think that it just doesn't really have any merit. I'm going to be taking you guys back to that night in particular. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but let me talk about why it is for the most part. Kyle's the one who's going to have to deal with all the flack, which, by the way, I think it's kind of unjust given everything the boy has been through. But I also want to talk about why it is that that entire situation could have been a lot worse. So make sure you guys stick around. It's going to be a bit of a doozy, but trust me, we got to get into this. Well, gang, you probably would have thought that this issue would have been put to bed and never to be touched again. But as I have said before in other videos, the boy's life is probably not going to get any better. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, you guys saw the thumbnail, and you now see that Kyle Rittenhouse has been sued. He was actually being sued by Anthony Hoover's father, one of the guys that, let's just go ahead and say it was the skateboard guy that attacked Kyle that night in Kenosha. And Kyle, of course, put him down. But right now he's being sued by the surviving member of the original three. The original three that tried to actually kill Kyle. Of course, I'm talking about Gaige Grosskreutz, the same guy who, for the most part, got completely humiliated on the stand during the actual trial, which, by the way, was a complete farce. Now, guys, this video right here is not going to talk a lot so much about the actual trial itself, but I'm going to be reviewing why it is that this entire ordeal could have been a lot worse than what it actually was. I'm going to kind of paint a scenario for you guys to kind of think on, but there is going to be some discussion about the court case too, very, very minimal. The thing about this court case is that there's a lot of things in this actual package that's inside this legal docket that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But for the purposes of giving you guys a better explanation on that, what I will say is this here. There is one certain section that kind of alleges that Kyle may have, I don't know, colluded with the cops, some really, really crazy stuff. But then again, the Gaige Grosskreutz is the same person who tried to sue the city of Kenosha, Wisconsin, because they claimed that it created an unsafe environment for him to go to. And I'm like, unsafe environment for you to go to? You mean the same place that you're currently burning down at this moment in time? Yeah, just stupid stuff, suburban, white, liberal logic. I got to play the victim. I got to virtue signal, stuff like that. However, what I'm going to do is going to be leaving this video right here in the description box. I'll also leave highlights from that trial and explanations. More than likely, that will be from Robert Barnes, Viva Fry, and of course, Nick Rekieta, who actually kept up with the case much, much thoroughly, and they actually understood what was going on as far as legal jargon is concerned because they are actual lawyers. I'm just a good old-fashioned paralegal who just does the simple little bit of research. Now, guys, before we go any further, I'm going to let you guys know that due to the fact of going to the eye doctor and getting fitted for contacts and stuff like that, I'm giving my eyes a chance to air out. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of throw these glasses on. Yeah, I kind of look a little bit like the guy I was talking about earlier today, Scott Adams. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because that situation could have been a lot worse than it was. Now, let's go back in time really quick and let's actually set the scene of that night, okay? It was an incident. Of course, it was Jacob Blake who tried to, he showed up to his girlfriend's house. Argument ensued, discussion. Girlfriend called the cops. Blake, of course, tried to kidnap those kids. Cops showed up. Things escalated. He ended up going into his vehicle to try to pull a knife out. Cops, of course, acting within the parameters of use of force, they shot him. He ended up being paralyzed. As a result, next thing you know, you get protests. Eventually, you get riots. This, by the way, was 3 months after the whole George Floyd ordeal, which I don't think we need to revisit because I'm pretty sure most of you guys are familiar with what happened in 2020. There were also the riots in Atlanta, too. So, obviously, Kyle Rittenhouse, he leaves from Antioch, Illinois, exactly 20 miles away. Of course, we got to be reminded by Anna Kasparian that he crossed state lines constantly when he was literally going to his father's house in Kenosha, because his mother lived in Antioch. And, of course, he's armed, and he's basically trying to provide aid, security. Car dealerships need help. People don't want their stuff burned down. He has no intention of actually hurting anybody, just protecting the property that he's assigned to. All of a sudden, you got this guy named Joseph Rosenbaum screaming, "Shoot me." Also, you've got all these other people going crazy, running their mouth. I hate Waddy, all that stuff right there. White people are the problem. White people are absolutely crazy. All that type of stuff. And, of course, eventually something happens, and Hoover the guy who got charged 6 times for child molestation and yet was allowed to continue to get out indecent liberties, all that stuff there. Yeah, this guy should never have even been out. This is why I'm saying this entire ordeal could have been a lot worse. So he moves at Kyle with the intent of killing Kyle. Kyle shoots him, self-defense, runs away. Next thing you know, you got a whole crowd of people. By the way, Kyle was trying to get to the cops so that way he could turn himself in, even though what he did was self-defense. I mean, a lot of footage, a lot of camera footage, a lot of security camera footage, pictures being taken, basically showed that the case against Kyle Rittenhouse was an absolute farce and it would not stick. As a matter of fact, the Second Amendment itself was pretty much put on trial in what was really kind of a kangaroo court, or, well, I wouldn't call it a kangaroo court because everybody in the courthouse knew that Kyle was well within his rights to defend himself. Now, if you guys want to argue whether he should have been there or not, that right there is a completely different discussion. I have even said before that if I had been the boy's father, if I had been his mother, I would not have allowed Kyle to even leave the house. Either way, though, he's still in Kenosha. But he does have a right to defend himself. And I'm very, very much about being pro-Second Amendment, also very, very much about being pro-self-defense, and also defense against what could be a tyrannical government. I'm all about that. And also one more thing, too. To all you guys out there who think that us veterans are war criminals, which, by the way, they've kind of labeled some of us domestic terrorists, I want you guys to know right now, I really and truly don't care about your feelings, okay? There are people in hell right now that, quite frankly, need ice water. All right, just figure I'd just go ahead and throw that out there. Now, the thing is this right here. Skateboard guy, Anthony Hoover, he runs up behind him, takes a swing, takes a hack at Kyle. That possibly could have killed him. Kyle nailed him, and then Grosskreutz comes in there, and he's got his pistol. He's actually got the drop on Kyle. Pistol is pointed right there in Kyle's face, and Kyle shoots him right there in the arm. By the way, Gaige Grosskreutz, he drove to Kenosha to protest. A lot of those people that were actually out there burning down the city, they were coming from like Washington State, they were coming from Oregon, they were coming from some of the biggest Antifa holes in the country. They showed up for the sole purpose of actually protesting and burning down a city which, by the way, they did not belong to, over what was clearly BS, over what was clearly another case of another person of a certain color resisting arrest, who, quite frankly, should not have resisted arrest, doing something that, quite frankly, he should not have been doing, trying to kidnap some kids. Okay? So, right off the bat, this entire situation is already foobar. It's already screwed up. It's already jacked up. I mean, fucked up beyond repair. I mean, it's just the way that it is, and the situation is getting much, much worse. So, this guy, Grosskreutz, who, by the way, as I mentioned before, eventually tried to sue the city of Kenosha, saying that it was an unsafe place, which, by the way, you were helping to make unsafe by burning shit down, the logic of white liberals. Once again, they got to play the victim. And of course, he gets his arm blown off, or gets it blown out. By the way, Kyle, he was using a $499 DPMS Oracle rifle, which, by the way, he was well within his rights to have because he was not breaking any laws. Also, as I mentioned before, his father lived in Kenosha. His mother lived in Antioch. So the whole crossing state lines thing has never really made any sense. But then again, though, yeah, people obviously thought this was a very, very stupid thing. But that's really and truly all they had in this case was he crossed state lines. He crossed state lines when in reality it was kind of a stupid argument because he was just going to his father's house.
That I was going to die.
But on cross-examination, the defense went through the video again, at times second by second.
When you were standing 3 to 5 feet from him with your arms up in the air, he never fired, right?
Correct.
It wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun, now your hands down, pointed at him, that he fired, right?
Correct.
Last month, Grosskreutz filed a $10 million lawsuit for damage he suffered in the shooting.
What kind of damage did that do?
I effectively lost a large majority of my right bicep.
But the defense asked if it could impact his testimony.
So if he's convicted, if Mr. Rittenhouse is convicted, your chance of getting $10 million is better, right?
I'm not entirely sure how that plays out.
The state's last witness of the day was the lead detective in the case, and again, the defense honed in on Rittenhouse's state of mind.
The only people that he fired at were people that had either kicked him, hit him with something, or pulled a gun on him when he's running down Sheridan Road, right?
I would agree with that statement.
But hey, once again, logic of white liberals. You know, I did do a project on this recently, okay? And of course, it was talking about the left and mental illness and why is it the left and the mental illness are synonymous. Don't worry, there'll be more projects out in the future on this topic. But you guys kind of get it and kind of seeing what I mean by here. These people are mentally ill. They always have been. I mean, so you go to a place, you try to burn it down, and then you sue the place for creating an unsafe environment when you yourself are making the environment completely unsafe. Not to mention the fact that Huber had also been a wife beater. Rosenbaum, as I mentioned before, he was that P word. Of course, he'd been convicted and let go of, which I think was a failure by the state of Wisconsin because he should have been locked up for pretty much the rest of his life. Rittenhouse, by the way, was actually trying to get to the cops so that way he could turn himself in. He eventually would turn himself in the very next day. Of course, that right there would be, I think, to the Antioch Police Department. I could be a little bit off, but I do know he turned himself in the very next day. And of course, you got the whole stuff with Lynn Wood and how it was they basically left the boy in jail and all that stuff there. Fact of the matter is that Kyle Rittenhouse was defending himself. There are people to this day who believe that Kyle Rittenhouse just straight up shot 3 black guys when that right there is not the case. He shot 3 white boys, and his shots were definitely a lot more effective than Fauci's. I just figured I would go ahead and throw that out there because it is the truth, okay? Now, the reason why I'm saying that this entire thing could have gotten a lot worse, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because these people don't think. They really and truly don't think. They don't think about the possibilities. They don't think about how bad things could really and truly get. You see, life can be hard. It really and truly can. But it's obviously much, much harder if you're stupid. Okay, it's obviously much, much harder if you're doing nefarious shit. It's obviously much, much harder when you do this. And you see, right now, we have to give these people a trophy for their screw-ups, which is something I really and truly don't get about this court case. When you actually look into the doc, and like I said, I'll be leaving those videos in the description box in the comment section for you guys to watch. Because you see, to me, the whole court case is absolutely absurd. Anthony Huber's father, him suing, I think it's kind of absurd. Your son, the wife beater, tried to kill another kid that night during a riot, trying to destroy a town of which, by the way, you live in. I understand. He's my son. I've got to defend him. But didn't that son of yours, didn't he like leave behind like another child, like through his girlfriend or whatnot, that you may have to take care of? Maybe you might want to use that money, I don't know, maybe to take care of this grandchild you've got, seeing how your deadbeat son is no longer alive because he tried to attack a guy with a skateboard, tried to kill him, while also in the act of also burning down the city of which you live in. You see, the logic of these people makes absolutely no sense. We are dealing with absolutely a world right now that's been completely turned upside down. And of course, sometimes you want to look at this and you want to actually laugh at it. But see, I'm here to tell you right now that you got off easy. You actually got off a lot easier than you did. You see, the person right now who's got to deal with this for the rest of his life, even though he defended himself, is Kyle. Kyle's the one who's got to deal with this crap for the rest of his life. And last I checked, his Media Accountability Act, which, by the way, I hope and pray that he actually goes through with, and I hope and pray that it actually works, because our mainstream media helped make the situation a lot worse. They called him a white supremacist. They called him a racist. They called him anything and everything in the world. They defamed the literal hell of him. Even the President of the United States defamed him. There were several interviews that these people, that his family did. And, of course, to try to refute a lot of things that were said. His attorneys did. You guys, if you watch the court case, you know exactly how much of a farce it is. You knew every single little tiny trick that the prosecution tried to pull. I mean, there was even this one moment where the prosecutor was talking about gun safety, and yet he was pointing a weapon at the entire courtroom. Hilarious. Just stupidity. You never point a weapon at anything you do not intend to shoot. I mean, what was it? There was even this one moment they brought up video games, and Kyle's response was, it was video games. It's called a video game. It's not real life, okay? And don't get me wrong on this one. You probably think it's some old conservative white guy to be against video games, when in fact I'm actually not against it. I'm actually very, very much in favor of video games. What I'm not in favor of is sitting your child down in front of one and having them play all day in their room, not doing anything, which, by the way, leads me to believe that maybe Gaige Grosskreutz was probably closer to that than Kyle was. Kyle seemed to me to be like a kid that would actually go outside. I don't know, man. Maybe he went hunting or something like that there from time to time. You know, just a different cut of cloth here when it comes to kids, because most of these suburban parents, they're not exactly parenting, which is one of the reasons why I think this entire situation could have been a lot worse than what it already is. And quite frankly, the 3 who got shot actually got off a lot easier than you think. Rosenbaum had, like I said before, 6 separate occasions had molested a child. Rosenbaum should have been locked up for the rest of his life. Instead, he attacked somebody, and you do stupid things, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Hoover beat a girl, robbed another woman. His rap sheet's also pretty bad. And then tried to kill a guy with a skateboard. Got shot. Like I said, I'm not advocating or condoning, so YouTube, don't strike me. I'm just simply saying that he got off easy. His life could have been a lot worse. Also, something else too, Grosskreutz. Now, Grosskreutz, on the other hand, I do think it is going to be actually funny to watch, because I think the fall from grace and the fact that people get to see him go out there and play the victim every day eventually just makes people laugh. Makes you wonder exactly how much longer he's got. But the thing is this right here, and I want you to think about this. What if it had not just been Kyle there? What if it had been the neighborhood? What if it had been, let's just say, 5 or 6 veterans, guys that had been trained to fight? What if they went out there that night? And what if these rioters had the gall to attack them? What if these rioters had the nerve to try to take on a bunch of guys who were actually trained for combat? Like I said before, 3 with a $500 DPMS Oracle AR-15. Can you imagine 5 guys who are military trained? By the way, YouTube, not advocating, just simply creating a scenario. Could you imagine a bunch of guys who were actually trained for combat being put in that situation, being pressed, you try to run after them? Can't you see exactly how bad the situation could have been? Could have been a lot worse than what it already is. I mean, the only people who are suffering at this moment in time are the people who live in the city of Kenosha, Wisconsin, because they're the ones who've got to rebuild this place after these rioters, who, by the way, many of them came from outside that city, which means that they shouldn't have been there to begin with, to try to destroy their place over a guy who, quite frankly, did not deserve to be defended. I mean, hell, you had the NBA teams that night protesting, saying, we're not going to play out of solidarity for Jacob Blake. Dude, you want to know why it is people don't like NBA athletes anymore? It's because of this crap right here. You are supposed to be on TV, playing a game, providing entertainment for people, but then you suddenly decide to virtue signal over somebody who did not deserve to be virtue signaled over. What I'm trying to say is this entire situation could have been a lot worse. What if it had been 5 or 6 guys that showed up there that night to do what Kyle was planning to do, provide security, and let's just say they provoked him. Next thing you know, it's not 3, it's 6. Maybe it ain't 6, maybe it's 12, maybe it's 30, maybe it's 40, maybe it's potentially 50. 50 potential SJWs and soy boys and rioters who were simply taking advantage of a crisis, because that is what riots are. They're not really an expression. An expression would be 3 or 4 people getting pissed off and starting something. The other 200 to 300 or 4,000 or whatever it show in, they're simply doing it because the opportunity is there. What if there had been more that got clipped? I'm just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. Fact of the matter is that they actually got off quite easy when you think about it. And by the way, like I said before, I'm not condoning it. It was obviously a horrible thing that happened that night. Very, very bad thing. But those of you who rioted and destroyed the place and destroyed the city and burned everything down and then were able to get away, not getting charged, you guys got off easy. You guys were allowed to basically walk away, no charges or anything. Meanwhile, Rittenhouse has got to continue to defend himself against anybody and everybody in the world in stupid lawsuits and stupid cases, while he was the one that was obviously in the right for defending himself. So I just figured I'd just throw this video together to kind of say to you guys that this whole lawsuit's a little bit stupid. It's a bit of a, maybe this video right here might come off as a little bit more of a rant. By the way, these types of videos are going to be fewer and far between going forward, because I'm going to be doing a lot more projects. Of course, I got to transition. In order for me to do that, I still got to post every day, especially seeing how we're getting closer to monetization, which means I'm going to curb some of the language. But then again, though, I don't think my language upon further review on this channel is really that bad or really that triggering. But then again, though, there is always going to be somebody who does, in fact, get triggered by the comments and the content. Fact of the matter is, Kyle Rittenhouse's shots were much, much more effective than Fauci's. However, there are some people who will never let that go, and there are some out there who like to play the victim in every single avenue of life, who just don't go away. Basically, Gaige Grosskreutz is just a good old-fashioned turd that will not flush. Guys, John Claymore here. If you like the content, hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I know it sounds like a little bit more of a rant than normal, but please make sure you guys do that. Leave a comment in the comment section. I'll see you guys later.